Hello and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, a singer, songwriter, videomaker, Oakland native, and New York City subway commuter. I'm also a huge history nerd. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, and anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. Each day, I'm going to share some of my very favorite deep cuts with you, so let's dig into today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 mxmtoon.
Today, in 1993, then 16-year-old Caron Thomas impersonated a New York City subway motorman and operated an A train for 3 hours, nearly without incident. Caron was a huge subway buff and almost got away with the impersonation, except for an error he made rounding a curve in the Washington Heights neighborhood. After this escapade, Caron became a bit of a legend in New York. Before we get into Caron's story, let's talk a little bit about the New York City subway system. The subway opened in 1904 and is one of the oldest public transit systems in the world. It's also one of the biggest subway systems in the world, the biggest in the United States by far, and globally, the transit system with the most number of stations. For New Yorkers, myself included, the subway is basically the city's lifeblood. It allows us to traverse huge swaths of a very large city in a pretty short amount of time, provided that there aren't delays or track work, which, in fairness, there usually are. The subway runs 24/7, or at least it did before COVID and hopefully will again. Now it's closed from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. for cleaning, even though the CDC says COVID doesn't really spread through surfaces. If you live in New York, you don't need a car or even an Uber account. The subway is your best friend. I personally do take the subway literally everywhere I go, and yes, that is because I don't have a driver's license. There are 36 rail lines in the subway system, denoted using a mix of letters and numbers. The longest line is the A train. This train runs continuously from 207th Street at the top of Manhattan down to Far Rockaway in Queens, a stretch of more than 31 miles. That's about a 30-minute car ride, assuming there's no traffic. Not that that would ever happen, and the car is going around 55 to 50 miles per hour. But this brings us to Caron. Caron Thomas was born in Trinidad and moved to the Brooklyn neighborhood of Brownsville in 1990 when he was 13. Once he was in New York, Caron discovered a passion that would become a defining part of himself: the subway. He became obsessed with the subway. In a New York Times article from May 12, 1993, Caron is described as falling in love with the cruising, squealing monsters that carried New Yorkers all over the city. He would ride the trains for fun. He hung out at subway stations and learned subway jargon from motormen he befriended. He got a copy of the New York City Transit Authority's book of rules and regulations and studied them. According to the Times article, he would stand for hours near the front window of his family's Brooklyn apartment, holding a piece of wood and pretending it was a brake handle, calling out the stations in a sing-song voice so clear it made his mother's heart ache. Next stop, Franklin. His obsession with the trains did go a bit far. He would wear part of a transit worker's uniform while hanging out in his neighborhood and told neighbors false stories about working at subway token booths. This was before Metro cards, the transit cards we used to pay for the train in New York, when you had to buy a physical token to ride. He got arrested for trespassing at a train yard. His mom told him to wait until he graduated from high school before applying for a job with the Transit Authority, but Caron didn't want to wait. And that brings us to May 8th, 1993. It was a Saturday, and just before 4 p.m., Caron showed up at the A-Line's terminus at 207th Street, wearing jeans and a motorman's shirt. He used the name and identification number of an off-duty motorman so he could work a quote-unquote shift. He also carried a number of required tools with him, including a brake handle and a safety vest. The supervisor who gave him access to the train told him he was out of uniform, but otherwise didn't really seem to realize he was talking to a 16-year-old high school kid. He didn't check his ID, and he let him on the train. Caron's time spent memorizing that rulebook paid off. He navigated the train pretty expertly, making 85 stops in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, and eventually reached the end of the line. On his way back to Upper Manhattan, though, he ran into a problem. When rounding a curve in Washington Heights, he didn't slow down enough and tipped the train's emergency brakes. That tipped off the transit authority that something was wrong. Caron was taken to the headquarters at J Street in Brooklyn and ran away when he got there. That's when the transit authority started investigating, discovering that Caron was just a kid. Early reports after the incident suggested that Caron was going to face jail time, but luckily he didn't. New Yorkers loved the story of the teen who adored trains so much he decided to drive one. The New York Times reported at the time, duty-bound to make it clear that people may not play subway motorman whenever they like, but wary of punishing a folk hero. And a mere boy at that. Law enforcement officials settled yesterday on 3 years probation for the 16-year-old who took the controls of a subway train for 3.5 hours in May. The biggest surprise of the story? When Caron grew up, he didn't end up becoming a subway motorman. Instead, he became an electrician. Sadly, Caron died at the age 37 in 2013 of heart failure, something he battled his whole life. He will always be remembered for a pure and beautiful love of trains. And now for our music guest of the day. Today we have a really wonderful individual coming on the show to talk about a moment from their life. Take it away, Sue Lee.
Hey, my name is Sue Lee, and I write and produce music. May 9th, 2020 is the day that I uploaded a video on YouTube that gave me my first break as an artist. This particular video was for a song called I'll Just Dance, and it's about feeling really stuck, about not knowing what's right or wrong in life, and there just seems to be no one to give me a solid answer of what to do. So I made this video just to let some steam out and quite literally just dance it off. I uploaded the video on YouTube and then posted the video myself on Reddit, being the shameless self promoter that I am. I did that and went out to grab noodles for lunch. And then when I came back, I realized that the video had ended up on the front page of Reddit. I frankly still don't know how this all happened, but I'm just really grateful that it did because this was essentially the day my career as a working artist was launched.
And now for our final segment of the day, I'm going to be going into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on a May 8th in my life. Apparently, May is a rough month for me. There's pockets of like cool stuff that I'll get to on the episodes where I can talk to it about that day. But May 8th in my life doesn't seem to be a very exciting time in my life. Like in May 8th of 2018, I have a bunch of photos of my cat, but that's not really anything special. On May 8th of 2019, I have a screenshot of me going to a site that's called amicanceled.com, and it said, luckily, mxmtoon is not canceled. But if I typed in mxmtoon, it told me that I was canceled. If I typed in Maia, it told me I was canceled. But mxmtoon is still a good to go term. But other than that, I don't even have photos from May 8th of 2020. It seems to be kind of like a mystery spot of my life. But, it's good to know mxmtoon still lives, breathes, and loves. Woo! Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. You can go ahead and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow at 365 Days mxmtoon on your preferred social media platforms.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 360